every week. I can never find it. There it is. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vinyl Power. That's right, the podcast where we talk about our love for vinyl records and share it with you. Join us each week as we bring you the latest in vinyl releases, what's in our vinyl collection, and wrap it up with epic vinyl. That's right here, each and every week, with your hosts, the Reverend Jeff Kelley and Kurt Harris. Once again, welcome to Vinyl Power. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Episode number 8. Episode 8 of Vinyl Power. That's right. We're going to be bringing you some interviews here after episode 10, so stick with us for that. But today, we are back online live, and I am the Reverend Jeff Kelley, and over there, all the way in North Carolina, is Mr. Kurt, the Music Man Harris. How you doing there, sir?
Doing excellent, and let me tell you, Jeff, first and foremost, I know what month this is. It's October.
Hey, all right. It is still October.
So here we are, Thursday, October. Yes, that's right. Thursday before Halloween, October, and it's the beautiful 26. I mean, how can you get any better than that? It's a wonderful day. There's nowhere else I'd rather be than joining you for another episode of Vinyl Power, streamed out live to the music-loving world.
Absolutely. We are back. And if you see this little box sitting over here during the show, that's my lovely brand new vintage Sony STR 6036A. Yeah. Little 20-watt receiver that I started refurbishing today. So that's what's sitting over there on the box if you were curious. And speaking of things that might be making you curious, let's find out what releases we have going on this week so you can see what's coming in people's mailboxes tomorrow. Yeah, good God. Benjamin Wallfish. And it's not spelled like you think it. There's a C in there where you didn't think it would be. Anyhow, whatever it is, there you have it. Goldfinger's coming out with Coconut Ass live from Omaha. Goldfinger's also releasing Stomping Ground.
That's
Hotel Books with Equivalency. Julian Baker, Turn Out the Lights. Lucinda Williams, The Sweet Old World. Mastodons, Cold Dark Place. Michael Jackson, Scream. I thought he was dead. Are they still releasing old records or old stuff he recorded that we don't know about? No, seriously, he has a vault of stuff that's never been released to the public that was recorded before he died that nobody's ever heard.
Well, much like Hendrix, right? Look how many releases there were. Hendrix only had 3 studio albums in his career, and I mean, while he was alive, I should say, and then 1 live album. And my gosh, there must be 40 Hendrix albums out there, and we might get that with Michael Jackson. He might have recorded a bunch of music with a bunch of different people, and hey, some of that might be really worth hearing.
Slaughter Beach Dog with Birdie. Yeah. The Used is out with The Canyon. Trevor Morris with Castlevania, the original soundtrack, and Weezer with Pacific Daydream. So that's what's coming out this week. You'll see people, oh, look what's in my mailbox today. Well, that's what they're seeing. Now you know ahead of time. That's right. Join us here Thursdays, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And that's when we're here live, and you can chat in the chat box with the 2 guys that are out there now. Hey, Kurt, got a question for you, man. What you been spending this week on the turntable?
Bringing another theme this week, and being that we were right in front of Halloween, basically our Halloween show, because by the time we do our next show, it'll be just after Halloween. And I thought, bring a little metal to the table this week. I don't have any Halloween. I don't have any Smashing Pumpkins, so I couldn't hit the nail directly on the head, but hey, Iron Maiden, Peace of Mind.
Oh, yeah.
So the 4th studio album by Iron Maiden, the first one with the drummer, Nico McBrain. Obviously, this album follows the hugely successful, Number of the Beast, which is just an amazing album. I really can't tell you which one I like better. I actually was fortunate enough to see both tours live, and both were great. Both albums are great. And a few interesting little things about this album. One is basically every song on this album is dedicated to either a science fiction movie or a story of some kind. They were even going to name a song Dune, but Frank Herbert's estate would not allow it. And so the song is actually called Tame the Land. But you can hear just, Where Eagles Dare is actually from the Alistair MacLean book and the movie, 1968. Revelations, well, we know where that comes from. Flight of, now some people say Icarus, some people say Icarus. It's up to you. Tomato, tomato. Die with Their Boots On. We know where that came from. The Trooper, Still Life, Quest for Fire, Sun and Steel, and To Tame a Land. Just a fantastic album. Again, flip over my show notes, and I do always keep show notes handy. 1983, and a great follow-up to 1982's Number of the Beast. So that's where I started the week. And bouncing around a little bit in the metal world, 2016, the 10th album by the Swedish Viking metal band Amon Amarth. Believe it or not, being that this is their 10th album, this is their first concept album. It is a story from beginning to end. It's a double record. It's a little more melody driven, actually, and maybe that's partly to do with them telling a story in it. But one of the really coolest reasons that I wanted to show this one, besides being a fan of Amon Amarth, is check this out when you open it. That's right. You get the
3D
prow
picture
of a Viking ship. So you can basically,
it's got little coloring spaces for all your friends.
Exactly. You can basically smell the ocean waves breaking on the prow of that Viking ship. So 2016, the latest by Amon Amarth, Swedish metal band. They've actually been around since 1992. And if you ever watch their videos, they probably have the best produced videos I've ever seen. Great album, great band, a lot of fun. After that, why don't we go to 1974? Oh, yeah. The first ever Judas Priest album, Rocka Rolla. Very funny thing about this album is it was extremely overlooked. It got bad reviews. They probably only sold like 5,000 copies. The band was in amazing financial straits. They were all working basically normal jobs, trying to make it happen.
Waiters, pizza guys.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever, right? And it just didn't happen with this album. But I absolutely love this album. I always have. And for me, other people might agree with me, some may not, but being 1974, this was also produced by Roger Bain. Well, Roger Bain is the same person who produced the first 3 Black Sabbath albums, which are 3 of my favorite albums ever made. And it owes a lot to that album in production. You can hear it. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the second true heavy metal band, and that's why it had to make the cut during this week. So 1974, Judas Priest, Rocka Rolla, as far as I'm concerned, the second true metal band. And moving on to my 4th album, like I said, I jump around here just a bit, but I keep it all in the metal realm. And we have the Scorpions
Blackout,
with Blackout, which
I have that one in my collection too.
Great album, right? 1982. This is their 8th album. It actually reached number 10 on the U.S. charts and number 11 on the UK charts. So it was, a fairly successful album. And the reason I picked this one, because I have multiple Scorpions albums, but I picked this one, I think this is one of their most metal albums from beginning to end, because it's kind of hard to classify them as.
It really is pretty hard. I don't know if I classify it metal, but it is definitely the harder side of rock.
Yeah, and this was the point when they had both, Matthias Jabs and Rudolf Schenker, brother of the amazing Michael Schenker. They're known for their great guitarists, and I just think this is one of their hardest rocking albums they ever put out. Of course, they had a lot of songs on the radio. It may not have been as big as the Love at First Sting album, which came along, what was this, 82, so just a few years later. It was 84, 85 with Love at First Sting, and with Rock You Like a Hurricane, all the exposure that got for the band. But I think this is a great record. Actually, Klaus Meine, who I've actually met. I actually partied with Klaus Meine once, but I won't go into that here. Klaus Meine actually had vocal surgery, and all the demo material was done, for those who might know who this is, Don Dokken from the band Dokken. So all the original demos, of which I don't know where to find them. I would love to hear them. But while he was recovering, before they actually got into the final studio work, the band recorded this whole album with Don Dokken on vocals, and I would love to hear that at some point. But anyways, I thought this would be a nice one to round out. And of course, pretty Halloween-y kind of creepy cover there. So, the Scorpions, Blackout. And those were the metal records I was listening to here on our Thursday, October 26th, the week before Halloween. And I have to ask you, Jeff, you have such an amazing record collection, so I have to ask you, what did you dig up this week to present to our worldwide music fans?
The interwebs have spoken. Yes. The Reverend went, chick bands? Yeah, that's right. Chicks that rock. Not just any chick bands, but chicks that actually rock. Now, people are going to talk about this first one. She's not rock and roll. But I got news for you. Long before there was anybody else, there was Tina, and she was rock and roll. Now, when she was with Ike, yeah, maybe not so much. But later in life, man, she got away from that Motown R&B sound. And really, this particular album, Private Dancer, really is a lot of fun. It was the 5th studio album, making her debut with the record company. This was released on Capitol Records 1984. Recording sessions took place for the album in several studios across England. It was overseen by 4 different production teams. I mean, that's just kind of crazy. It was recorded across the years of 1983 and 1984. It was tough. Ike was supposedly the draw all those years. At least that's what they told Tina. But in the end, where did Ike really end up? Absolutely nowhere. That's where Ike ended up.
I think Tina Turner was amazing. I completely agree with you. And for those that haven't seen, I just have to add to that record, if you've never seen it, check out Tina Turner's performance of The Who's Acid Queen. Absolutely amazing. It's intense.
Yeah, this really is a rockin' record. So up after that, of course, now I mentioned them last week. I'm going to mention them again this week because it actually ties into a few things here. But again, it is the Runaways. First time as a quartet, the angst. I mean, the barbed wire. They were really bitchy. At least that's what they were trying to come across with. Yeah, it was when Joan Jett joined the group with her badass guitar licks. She's really a rocker. I mean, you put her up against some of these people, I'd like to see that battle. Even today, I mean, she's still playing and really still releasing some decent stuff. Now, the Runaways were originally produced by that dude. What's his name? Kim. Dadgummit. I can never remember this guy's name. I always forget it. He was the guy that was behind the Runaways, and it all ties together here in just a little bit. But the Waiting for the Night album, this is the one that has Cherry Bomb on it. And anytime anybody mentions the Runaways, you go, oh, Cherry Bomb. Yeah, that's this album. And the wife always, every time she puts it on, she's just like, man, those girls just sing with angst. I mean, look at the picture on the back of it. You know, I mean, the girls weren't smiling for a reason. They wanted to be taken seriously in the rock and roll world, and up until then. So, you know, that's kind of where I went back to the Runaways again this week. One, because I hadn't had one in my collection, and I've spun the crap out of it since I did. But leading up to the next rock and chick, like we were just talking about, is Joan Jett. Now, this is her second album, but this is I Love Rock and Roll. Now, last week I was talking about Bad Reputation, which was her solo debut album. But this monster here, it rocks the first half of it, but the second half of it's a bunch of mamby-pamby remake crap that, you know, everybody was kind of doing in the 80s. Nag and Crimson and Clover, you know, those are both remakes. But then Victim of Circumstances and, you know, You're Too Possessive really kind of bring her right back into the fold. So as I said, Joan has always been a little heartthrob of mine anyhow, but I love to listen to her sing. We're in the car today, and just under my barely hearing, I hear, I saw him standing there, and I just cranked the radio. You know, the finger went over and spun the dial all the way to the top, because that's the way it goes when that song comes on. And I just tried out the new Sherwood that I got all cleaned up, and I'm, you know, and listening to, and I gotta be honest with you, it's better than the Sansui was. It really is. And we dropped this album on, and it's just amazing. Amazing the way just different circuitry makes things sound.
Absolutely.
But the Joan Jett album then led to what I thought was going to be my up album of the week, but I changed my mind. Lita Ford. Now this one is dancing on the edge. And really, like we were just talking about, I don't know that I would call Lita Ford metal, but this album, this particular album especially, is really on the harder side of rock. I mean, when you kick this album on, I was like, who are we listening to? Oh, that's right, that's Lita Ford. Close Your Eyes Forever with Ozzy Osbourne, you know, is what most people remember Lita Ford from, but she too was a member of the Runaways. So it's the second solo album by Lita Ford. It's also her last release with Mercury Records before she signed on with RCA. It featured the new backup band made up of drummer Randy Castillo, who used to play for who? Ozzy Osbourne and Motley Crue. You know, so, I mean, it really had the pieces and parts to put together for a slamming album, and it really, really was good. I want to listen to more of it. When the show's over tonight, I think we're going to put the second half of that one back on because we didn't get to listen to it before the show. So that's actually what I was spinning on the turntable this week. It was a lot of chick bands, but man, Cyndi Lauper, Madonna, they were all in there. They didn't make the cut for the show. The Eurythmics, the B-52s, you know, those are all rocking bands, but you know, these are the ones that really did it for me, that got me into chick rockers. You know, I was always like, nah, chick bands, whatever. But these are chick bands that'll really rock you, including Tina Turner. So I got to ask you there, Kurt, is it time to talk to them people out there in the chat room, see who's hanging out live?
Let's see who's hanging out.
Well, let's see who's hanging out live in the chat room with us tonight. We have a grand total of our two biggest fans. That's right. Mr. Rod Dupree in the place to be, and
always
Mr. Lance
in the place to be.
Windsor. Lance was asking about doing an episode on the Tragically Hip. Sadly, I don't have any Tragically Hip in my collection, but this is an opportunity to talk about that. We've lost a lot of rockers in the last couple of weeks.
Yes,
you know, Tom Petty, Fats Domino. I can't remember the guy's name for the Tragically Hip. The lead singer of that band died. The producer for AC/DC, he died. The brother of one of the original band members. I can't remember his name either. I'm horrible with names. But this week there's been a lot of music industry just deaths of people that passed on. I saw Fats Domino died yesterday. You know, I found my thrill.
Blueberry Hill.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, you never forget Fats Domino if you've ever heard him in your life.
Absolutely.
But I digress. We are back to talking about things that are epic. And I got to ask you, Kurt, I already know, but what did you bring for your epic record this week?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, this is the album that defined heavy metal. 1970, Black Sabbath, Paranoid. One of the interesting things that I would point out about this album is that they went into the studio and cut this album only 4 months after the release of the first album. It's a vastly different record. The first record is probably my all-time favorite record. But it's not necessarily that it's better than this. I just love the rawness of that first record. But when you drop the needle on side 1 of this record, and the first thing you hear is, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? War Pigs. Oh my God.
Yeah.
When you hear War Pigs, if the hair doesn't stand up on your arms, if your heart doesn't start to beat faster, the blood rush in your veins, well, there's probably something wrong with you. You're just not into it. This is the Rhino release. It is the gatefold with the original picture on the inside. I've always loved that picture of the band. And, you know, came out in the same year, 1970, same year as the original. Both albums, same year. Now, the first one, of course, didn't get much radio play, and there's plenty of reasons for that. The whole thing almost plays, especially side 2, like one long song. One of the reasons I love it so much. But here, War Pigs, Paranoid, Planet Caravan, and Iron Man on one side. I mean, you play side 1, are you kidding me? It's just insane. And then side 2, Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, Rat Salad. They never could figure out where they got the name Rat Salad. And then it finishes off perfectly with Fairies Wear Boots. And, you know, we can talk a lot about technical aspects of this album. The fact that the song Paranoid was actually written and put together in about 5 minutes, according to Geezer Butler and Tony Iommi. But I think one of the really interesting things about this album is that Black Sabbath has always been such a misunderstood band. And yes, later on, as they progressed in their career, figure this is right at the beginning. First 2 albums, same year. Yes, as they got wealthy and they progressed going around the world, and they most definitely delved into way too much drugs and alcohol. And eventually, later on, it really derailed what they had going by the time you get to the late 70s. However, if you take the lyrics from the first album, the second album, and the third album, read through it, listen to the music, and understand what this band was actually talking about, they could be one of the most misunderstood bands out there. Not only did they have a message of anti-war, which that was very popular during that time period. Of course, many bands had that message, but their message was a little deeper. It wasn't just about the political machinations. It was about the evil behind war. It was about the evil of sticking a needle in your arm to escape from life, not about smoking some weed or having a few beers, but basically selling your soul by sticking that needle in your arm, detaching yourself from life, the machinations that actually were producing the evil of war across the world, not wars that may be necessary when you're totally putting down a despot that wants to rule somewhere else. Then it's terrible, but it might be necessary. That's not what this band was talking about. So I think they've always been very misunderstood. The lyrics are amazing. Like I say, overall, produced by Roger McBain, produced the first, also produced that first Judas Priest album. It's the only Black Sabbath album that ever went to #1 anyway. It went to #1 in the UK charts. No other Sabbath album until actually 13 came out. What was that, about 4 years ago, I guess now, when 13 came out. When that album came out, it also went to #1, but basically all those years, they never had another #1 record. This was the only one. And like I say, as far as I'm concerned, this is the in every way the album that defined what heavy metal would become. And in terms of where I would place it in my top albums, well, it sits very comfortably, very close, probably in my top 5 anyways. So that's pretty much what my epic album of Thursday October. Yeah, baby. October 26th, the week before Halloween. And having said that, I have to ask you, almighty Reverend Jeff, what epic album are you bringing to the table for all of our fans and people who love music across the world are waiting to hear your voice and to be schooled in the ways and means of music? So give it to me, Reverend Jeff. What
not a
album
medieval joust? You're not a herald. And now the protector of Italian virginity.
Where
is that?
And so, without further gilding the lily, and with no more ado, I give to you the seeker of serenity, the protector of Italian virginity, the enforcer of our Lord God, the one,
the only. Yeah, you know, I came across this band accidentally. And sometimes you absolutely take a chance on things. And while I was at the record shop, you know, I was like, dude, I like chick bands. I do. I don't care. I'm not afraid to admit it. I like the Go-Go's, the Bangles.
Absolutely.
You know, there's a bunch of good chick bands out there. So I'm going through the new arrivals, and this thing is in there. And I'm like, you know, I'm going to buy this and just put it on and see if I like it. What's the worst case that I don't like it? Obviously, they'll buy it back because they sold it to me in the first place. So, you know, I'm gonna lose half of what I paid on it. So I paid $2.99 on it, and I brought it home. They'll basically give you 50% back on it if you need to bring the record back just because you didn't like it.
No,
you know, so no, not at all. So, I mean, you know, and the band is called the Orchids. Now, be careful when you go to actually search for the Orchids, because there's a bunch of bands out there that have used the name since the 1950s. This is the 1980s band, the Orchids. It was formed after the disbanding of the Runaways. And that I finally found the information that I was looking for earlier. Apparently, lightning doesn't usually strike twice. So it's no surprise that when Kim Fowley tried to replicate the success of his all-girl band, the Runaways, with another all-girl ensemble, the results kind of fizzled instead of sizzled. The McAllister girl, who was in Lori McAllister, who was in the Runaways, was the head up of the Orchids. And sadly, even though this is a good album, lead vocalist was Jan King and not the author of the same name. There's a lot of range. There's a lot of ballads and rockers and mid-tempo stuff, but it just didn't hold out. Unfortunately, this was their only album. It is from the 1980s. And you can check out the rest of their information if you search for the Lost Grooves and the Orchids. It'll come up with their entire story. But front and back of this album, the Boy Can't Dance, Bad Guys, When Does Love Turn Out Right, Daughters of Babylon, Blame It on the Night, Turn Off the Lights, I'm No Fool, Sunshine Fire, Radio Dream. I mean, it really, really is a decent album. So if you come across a copy of this particular Orchids from MCA Records, it's MCA 3235, 1980 MCA Records. This is what the back looks like. Apparently this one is a promo copy. That's what the whole drilled through it was, so shady ass friggin' record stores couldn't send back promo copies and get credit for them. But honestly, for a 1980s, what they're calling a new wave band, they're still rocking it, man. And I really appreciate the effort that the girls put into this one. I wish it would have gone a little further. You know, a 5-girl piece band, and they're all playing and rocking those pieces. I don't know if you've ever heard of these girls on the radio or not, but they're on YouTube. You can definitely YouTube the Orchids 1980, and this will pop up, and you can listen to a lot of their stuff. You know what it is? It's time for that sad going away song.
Sad music time.
Yep. That's what time it is. It's going to start here. There it is. Hey, I'm glad you guys were out to join us today. Kurt, my man, thank you so much for being here with me today. Find us here Thursdays, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have a special edition on Wednesday night for November 9th, I believe it is. But catch us here next week, still Thursday. Week after, make sure that you're updated when the new time will be. Just one show. Gonna move the show for some, real life things. Those things do happen and go on. Facebook.com. You can search for @Vinyl Power Podcast. And it'll get you right to our page. Of course, subscribe and click the notification button on YouTube. As soon as we get to 100 views, 100 subscriptions, we can actually name the channel. Imagine that. 10,000 views is coming eventually. Look at that. We'll see you next week, guys.